The governor's 21st Century Education Commission releases its report, Big Trouble in Michigan Education. Can it be fixed? The chairman of the commission behind the report is here, and so is our roundtable of education experts. The state's future hangs in the balance. Today is Sunday, March 12, 2017, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. I will assume if you're watching this morning, it means you've got power, and that's a fine thing after the historic windstorms of last Wednesday. This morning, though, we're going to turn our focus to a different kind of storm, the storm that has torn away at what was once one of the nation's best states for education, and now has us looking up at most of the country and way too many other nations outperforming our schools. On Friday, a long-awaited report was released by the 21st Century Education Commission. The findings of where we stand today, pretty glum. When it comes to the performance of fourth graders, for example, Michigan is 41st in the country, but one of only 3 states losing ground on reading scores since 2003. For African American fourth graders, dead last in reading performance compared with the rest of the country. But wait a minute, don't think it's just bad for inner city or impoverished kids. Take out all of the lower income students and just compare our higher income students against other higher income students. Michigan checks in at 48th. So while there's been a lot of focus on Detroit and struggling districts with emergency managers, as a state trying to position itself as the high-tech mobility hub of the future, we're in deep trouble. But the report is about more than just a status update. It also includes a call for a kind of revolution in our classrooms. As the report puts it, it's time to transform, not tinker. And that transformation is our topic today on Flashpoint. It's called the Best Education System for Michigan's Success. So clearly it is designed more to look ahead than to look back. It was released Friday morning, and I'm very happy to have with me the chairman of the 21st Century Education Commission, Tom Haas, the president of Grand Valley State University. President Haas, thank you very much for coming
Great
this morning.
to be here with you, sir.
I don't want to spend too much time looking back, but when my family and I moved to Michigan 21 years ago, we knew we were moving to a state that had some of the best schools in the country. What happened in those 2 decades? Well,
I think what happened is we lost sight of the most important asset we have is our people and the students that we're attracting here to West Michigan, as you brought your children here too. We lost sight of that. And when we established ourselves as a commission, sharing with you before, we were going to look backwards for about 10 minutes because we needed to look forward, and the charge we got from the governor was to really be bold, be transformational. We had to look forward and create a framework that policymakers can use to go forward. And we were able to achieve what we did in this report with consensus with people from broad backgrounds, from industry to educators. And it was a fabulous opportunity for us to really engage that future.
It really is easy to get lost in past blame and grudges and things like that, but you did. You come up with 32 recommendations, all of which had to be unanimous, I guess, for them to emerge from the report. We can't go through all 32, but I want to start at the beginning, which is that you want to create more early education opportunity for everybody. We've talked about early ed and preschool for lower income and impoverished students. You want to see this open to everyone.
We do. The four-year-old space for us, if you look at where we are with 3rd grade and 4th grade reading in particular, it starts much earlier than that. So we have to gauge parents. That's one of the areas of focus with the report. And we do need to get started early. It's a continuum. What we have here, it's a system. It's P20. In fact, I would say we have to start with prenatal and move it forward. Yeah. So that's an important concept that's coming out of this report. Start early and let's get moving.
The other concept that it really goes against the grain of, I don't know how far back we go with thinking of 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, but to create a completely different system which is totally based on your competency, your mastery of skills to move through the system rather than, well, we've often talked about the problem of social promotion, getting rid of a grade level system. That's a tall ask, isn't it?
It is, but it's the right thing to be asking. We're transforming this was the focus that we had as a commission. We need to transform, because if we still stay in the modeling that goes back 50 years, we're not going to move ahead as a state. We're not going to take care of those children that are impacted by our decisions now. So let's move ahead. Competency-based, not just at the K through 12 level, but let's focus in on the at the post-baccalaureate level too. In my area with colleges and focus on competency there as well.
Should it necessarily take 4 years? It should take you whatever time you need to master the skills.
Indeed.
Correct? Yeah. What change, though, would that require of the way that we prepare teachers? Because teachers think of themselves as, I'm a second grade teacher, I'm a third grade teacher. What does that change then about our system of preparing our educators?
Well, it comes in different fashions too. With the existing cohort of teachers, we have to go through a shift in thinking through seat time now to competencies. So we have to give them some of the skills that are out there, and those are available. Those tools are available out there. So, but we also have to focus in on the new teachers coming into the system. So we led with one of our areas of emphasis was teacher development, and also the development of the administration that's going forward as well. So the principals and superintendents and all, they have to be part of this whole system. So we're looking at that as one of the key features to this system of ensuring that the current the current teachers are well equipped, and those that are coming in after them are as well. And this whole model of competency-based is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting. The other thing that is a real change in our thinking is thinking about what happens after what we think of as high school. Most of the jobs that are going to be available to us as we look 10 years down the road are going to require, you're no longer referring to it as a college degree, but a post-secondary certification, which means a lot of different things.
Sure it does. It could be military service. It could be certification in a particular skill set that comes out of the community college. It could come out of business themselves as well. So we had leaders from across this spectrum saying, we are looking ahead for the jobs of the future. 50 years from now, we better make sure that the talent pipeline is filled with well-trained individuals at different levels for the future jobs that we don't even know about yet.
Because there's a level of panic among business leaders in Michigan as they look for where they're going to get this pool of talent and workers. A high school degree clearly is of little value today.
And if you look at the data sets there, about maybe less than 1% of the jobs that are available are going to use that. It's well beyond to the, again, certification that's necessary, and that can be arrived with the systems, with colleges and universities and other places too, for that matter.
One of the real headlines that came out from Friday was the recommendation for free community college for Michigan students. That is clearly comes with a huge price tag. How doable is it? It's a great idea. Yeah. I don't think anybody would argue with that, but how doable is it?
We need to look at the, we talk about K-12, and then now we need to kind of shift ourselves to K-14. It's not free per se, but we're using all the resources that are available, Pell Grants and those types of opportunities to support this new model. And I do think that universal to get those first 2 years is a joint partnership with our folks at the K through 12. For instance, Grand Valley, we have a wonderful relationship, for instance, with Rockford of Grand Rapids Public, where we have students taking credit bearing courses and then moving them on into their first 2 years. So it's going to really reduce some of the cost impact to students studying after they finish up their high school experience.
If you look at all of the recommendations, which also include spending more on school facilities in poorer communities, somewhere around $2 billion extra a year is what we're talking about. How doable is that at a time when we've got Lansing trying to figure out ways to create income tax cuts and things like in the current climate? Mm-hmm. How big of an ask is $2 billion more a year?
We're talking about our future. And this is this framework. I said this morning, do you like our roads?
Not so much.
Think about what happens if we don't invest in human capital. The same thing, we're going to create these holes, and we're going to be where we are right now, maybe even worse than last. And we're going to compare ourselves to other states and other nations too. So we really do need to have this report as a compelling statement of urgency, but also providing us $2 billion next year? No, but in the next 10 years as we build this system up and to create that human capital that we need for our businesses and for the, we really focus in what's going to be important for citizens of the state as well. So that was the passion that we had as a commission to go forward. Yes, is it an investment? Without a doubt. Is it all next year? No, but let's get started.
In fact, I should point out a lot of this looks toward 2025 as a reasonable year in which you want many things in place. President Haas, thank you very much for your time and for all the work on this report.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
When we come back, we'll bring in our roundtable of experts, some of whom you were just referring to, business leaders, on and on, those who now will be charged with moving this project forward, turning this report into reality. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. All right, welcome back. Let's dig in now on the practical issues involved with creating real and meaningful change in the state's education system. Very good to have with me this morning Doug Ross. He's the president of American Promise Schools. Ivy Bailey is with us again, the president of the Detroit Federation of Teachers. Tonya Allen back with us, the president and CEO of the Skillman Foundation. And Jeff Krause, the CEO of SME, the Society of Mechanical Engineers. And Jeff, I'd like to start with you because, as I just said to President Haas, I don't think I'm overselling it to say that business leaders in Michigan are panicking a little bit at our landscape.
That's right. In fact, it's a national problem, but let's talk in Michigan and nationally. When we look at manufacturing, and that's what we focus on at SME, right now there's 600,000 unfilled jobs because of a skills gap. And with this silver tsunami of retirements of baby boomers, along with the application of new technologies that propel the industry forward, we're going to have that skills gap can grow to 2 million by 2025. It's critically important that we get the message out and we address the whole education system, the ecosystem, to attract people to manufacturing and business career opportunities.
Which is why I think, Doug, we see here really a blueprint for what you'd call a revolution. You have been trying for many years to create revolutions, and yet the system is resistant to that kind of change.
Right. The feel of this commission was one of urgent optimism. The urgency being, we are doing one of the worst jobs in this country and in the advanced world at preparing our kids for the future.
Yes, in fact, your view is very much one of an international. You look at the other countries around the world and you're a little depressed.
Yes,
you see there.
Yes. And so the first thing is we have to get people to understand it. And the point you made about middle class and upper middle class kids, you know, it's a Livonia problem, it's a Wyandotte problem, it's a Utica problem. Mm-hmm. Those parents have to be engaged. Optimistic because it's pretty clear what other countries and some other states have done to create much more high-performing systems. And if we have the will, it's doable.
Ivy, when the report came out on Friday, it didn't take long for critics to jump right out. The head of the MEA felt like this was just creating more of a top-down sort of governance that concentrates power in Lansing, concentrates power in the governor's office. I'm curious as to what your initial take was when you saw the recommendations.
I didn't read the full report, but I'm actually a little optimistic about it because it is time for us to change what we're doing. We need to be more hands-on with our children. There is a gap between technology and the things that our kids are learning. Yeah. They need to have some manufacturing. You know, we have vocational centers, but our vocational centers are all but destroyed. And so we need some people in manufacturing and engineering to come in and to assist us with some of our programs.
The idea of getting rid of our classic grade level system seems like a huge change to no longer think about third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. Is that something that teachers could get their arms around?
I think they could. It is a huge change. It's going to take, you know, if we do this and do it properly, I think it can work. But it is going to be a huge change because many of our teachers are creatures of habit, including myself, and even our parents. You know, we have to make sure we do this well. We cannot do it fly by night, which is what we've done in the past with some of the things that we put forth. You know, so if this is going to be an initiative and something that we're going to take on, we have to do it properly.
Tonya, you spend most of your time looking for revolutionary ideas, really transformative notions in the classroom. What jumped out about you from this report?
Well, what I liked was that it was suggesting that we needed to have disruption. I think we do definitely need disruption, but we cannot dismantle what we have, and I think that we have to
What do we have then, given
what I mean by that
where we stack up?
Don't get me wrong. I'm in no way defending what we're doing in the state of Michigan. I don't think I've ever been on record as doing that. But what I would say is this, is that we've had some things in our state that have been pretty successful. But we have basically dismantled those things with this pursuit of disruption. So we've had career tech education that has been in our state. We don't have that anymore. Jeff just talked to us about how important it is to make sure that young people are introduced to the trades, that they're introduced to advanced manufacturing. So I think we have to reinforce those things. I do think that this notion of universal early childhood is extraordinarily important. It makes sure that we get kids on track at the beginning of it. But if we don't do these kinds of things, we have a third grade reading or fourth grade reading bill right now that basically suggests that if children can't read at proficiency by third grade, that they're going to hold them back.
They languish.
In the state of Michigan, that means we're talking about approximately 85% of the African American kids in the state would be repeating the third grade. So we have to get some revolutionary ideas and practices, which I think the report suggests that we need to get these practices and distribute them wide to all of the educators across the state.
You know, Jeff, it's interesting. I always think, though, that when we're not creating more engineers, it's not because these kids haven't been told that this is a really lucrative thing, that it might be wise for your future. Somewhere we've got to change their thinking, or we've got to find a different premium to put on what's missing there. You know what I mean? How do we make that attractive if it's not?
You are on the right path with your idea. We have to start at a very young age, and it's probably in second grade, if not earlier, about the opportunities. Again, when I talk about manufacturing, people don't really realize we've done a study about parents' misperceptions about manufacturing, and they go, oh, if my son or daughter can't get into a top college, then maybe a career tech education. But guess what? There's incredible careers, high-paying jobs, whether it's machinists, working on robotics, lasers, any other automation technologies. You know, the average wage and benefit of a U.S. manufacturing worker is over $81,000. There are exciting careers, and there's many pathways to a career. So I applaud the report because it talks about the need for various pathways and the need to address those parents' misperceptions and to provide the training and education to teachers and guidance counselors about the array of opportunities.
Governor pretty much tours the state talking about if you can weld, he can guarantee you about a six-figure job.
Absolutely.
It's to pick up on Jeff. The commission said there were a number of key things with high leverage. One is really upgrade the teacher workforce. I mean, attract the best and the brightest and pay them like other professions. And secondly, we need a way to transmit world quality information to our teachers. We need to get the right amount of resource in, and like every other developed nation, we have to invest more in our disadvantaged kids than other kids. Big piece, though, is culture. It's to a point where we don't have a culture here which says, of course, working hard in school, getting A's and B's, getting your homework in, that somehow calculus is more important than cheerleading or football. I mean, we need a little dose of that South Asian and East Asian culture which says, this is your future, this is your destiny, and you got to work hard.
And the way we treat teachers, I always talk about in Finland, it's the most admired place in society to be a teacher. When we come back, though, how are we going to pay for it, and can we convince people that this is worthy of our investment and time? This is Flashpoint on Local 4. Welcome back to Flashpoint, talking about the report that came out on Friday that is really advising a revolution in our Michigan schools. Doug was just talking, Tonya, about trying to put a premium on a lot of places where they haven't necessarily had it before. Money is always the tricky part. You've got a lot of people who insist in Lansing that throwing money at a lot of educational problems has never shown us much success, and yet the findings and recommendations of this report are somewhere around $2 billion a year.
Right. Well, the challenge is that we actually have never thrown money at the problem. I wish we would have. Now, yes, we do spend a lot of money, and that's largely because we have a lot of infrastructure, because we've lost population, and many of the people who have left our state is because of the economy and because of the educational system. So if we make these investments, we're going to grow the economy, we're going to grow the educational system, the students, the people there, and we're going to grow our economic base. So I would say we need to make this investment. Otherwise, we're talking about business can't find people to work. We need to be worried about whether business is gonna actually stay here in this state if we don't make these investments. What I would ask is, I really want to see the legislative leaders in our state stand up and champion this issue and really take it on. It isn't just about money, it's about leadership. I think the report is pushing on that too, that we have to have some singular leadership and accountability. And we know that that's what helped Massachusetts become the top performing state, and it also would be a high performer even if it was a country by itself.
Have you jump in there?
And I do agree with Tonya about the accountability, and I'm going to push it out there with these charters. I think we should not have all these different authorizers. You know, we're not against charters, but we want the playing field to be level, and there should be one entity that's chartering these schools, and then there should be some accountability around how the schools are operated. But I also want to go back a little bit about the early childhood piece, because I feel that that's very important. But the thing about the early childhood programs that we have, we really don't teach the children reading. We expose them and we do more developmental training. But I think we need to actually, if a child is ready to learn their phonics and reading, I think we need to start doing that as early as we can.
Doug, this idea, though, that per pupil spending, when we look at the layouts, that doesn't necessarily transfer to better outcomes. How do you disconnect what we spend, the idea that what we spend, some people see it as an investment, other people see it as not having anything to do with your success?
Well, you have to work back from what elements you need to provide a quality education and cost them out. Right now, how much we spend is a kind of a product of past history, and you add 2% or 1% or whatever. It's time to kind of break down the model. One of the things that came strongly out of the report is, if you want to be a rich state, increase the percentage of your people who have a BA, a community college degree, or a technical degree. We're 32nd in terms of education attainment. We're 32nd in terms of per capita income. The top 10 states are all at the top in terms of the percentage of their people. That's an investment. We shouldn't make your family income matter in terms of your going on beyond high school.
Interesting, Jeff, because our manufacturing culture, by the way, they were telling me in the booth that I said Society of Mechanical Engineers, it's Manufacturing Engineers, SME, and that's an important part of this, because the manufacturing culture that we built is part of what convinced us for many years that you didn't necessarily need a college education, that you could walk out of high school and then do pretty darn well the next day walking into the plant.
When I started in the automotive industry a long time ago, there was a distinction between unskilled and skilled labor. But you know what, today, all jobs are skilled.
They're all skilled.
They all require some level of skills. And that's what this report reinforces. It may be certification, it may be community college, it may be career tech gained in high school programs, and there are great examples of that. It may be career tech post high school, and it might be university. So all jobs are skilled and require an aptitude of knowledge. That's why STEM and exposure to people at a young age is critically important.
I'm afraid we got to leave it there. I knew we'd solve it in our short time today. Thank you all very much for the conversation. Really appreciate you all being here. And as always, I appreciate you being here as well. Meet the Press coming up next, right after Mitch Albom's Heart of Detroit. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you right back here next Sunday morning for Flashpoint.